And hello, everyone. Fred Jackson sitting in for Kevin McCullough today on AFA Today. This 10th day of December, a busy news day. We're going to get to some of the big stories in just a second. Yeah, it's the 10th of December. 2 weeks from today is Christmas Eve. Now, I know a lot of you are really smart out there. You've already done your Christmas shopping, but maybe a few like me who haven't even started yet. But I'm going to get to it one of these days real soon. And listen, there's another great opportunity that you have each year here at American Family Radio to do some interesting Christmas shopping. And that, of course, is our annual Christmas Critter Campaign as we help the Gospel for Asia, just a terrific missionary organization. You can do something for people in places like India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. Yeah, it's the Christmas Critter Campaign. Now, if you're a regular listener to our program, you probably heard of it before. But if you haven't, it's such a neat, I think it's one of the coolest programs that we're involved with every year here at American Family Radio. You can give a gift, such as a chicken or a goat or a pig or a water buffalo, to a needy family in countries like India, Nepal, Sri Lanka. It helps them out and enables them economically. And you can do it by simply calling us at 877-907-GOAT, 877-907-4628, or visit afr.net. As I say, it's one of the coolest things. For instance, for $11, you can buy one of these families a pair of chickens. Now, for us, here in North America many times, well, what's that going to do? That means a whole lot to a family economically in these countries. You can buy a goat for $70, a water buffalo, if you're so inclined, for $460, a pair of lambs for $130, and there's a bunch of other gifts, at least 19 gifts that you can find out about. Some of them are critters, obviously, as we mentioned, but some other kind of neat things also that you could contribute. What a wonderful way at this season of the year to help really, really needy families in these countries. Gospel for Asia, AFR teaming up for this annual Christmas Critter Campaign. As I say, if you'd like to get involved, 877-907-GOAT, G-O-A-T, 877-907-4628, or visit afr.net. As I say, great campaign that we're involved with each year, and 100% of your gift, folks, 100% goes to Gospel for Asia for this wonderful, wonderful campaign. And we get feedback, folks. What happens is your money goes to missionaries on the scene in these countries, and they buy these animals for these families. And it helps them, enhances their economic kind of ability to go out and make a living for themselves. But also, most importantly of all, it gives these missionaries an opportunity to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that's the most important thing in this Christmas season. So, give us a call, 877-907-GOAT, 877-907-4628, or visit afr.net. You'll be hearing a lot about this over the next couple of weeks. All right. Johannesburg, South Africa today, memorial service for Nelson Mandela, who passed away last week. Dignitaries, world leaders, all at this memorial service today, including President Barack Obama. And according to the press reports, every time the President Obama's face was shown on the big screens there were cheers from this crowd of thousands of people who had gathered in this stadium despite the very poor weather. And President Obama talked a lot about the influence of Nelson Mandela on his own life, disclosing that he asked himself how well he's applied Mandela's lessons to himself as a man and as a president. A quote from President Barack Obama's speech: "We too must act on behalf of justice. We too must act on behalf of peace. There are too many of us who happily embrace Mandela's legacy of racial reconciliation, but passionately resist even modest reforms that would challenge chronic poverty and growing inequality." It's very interesting. I found those words from President Barack Obama today because, as you probably have heard reported, there's a difference of opinion in the conservative community in this country about Nelson Mandela. Certainly, he is praised for helping to bring about the end of apartheid in South Africa. He is praised for his approach to his oppressors. He spent many years in prison. But also there is criticism from the conservative community about his endorsement for things such as abortion, Nelson Mandela. Also that, he was arrested and put in jail for terrorist activities. And so there's some division, certainly in the conservative community. But Nelson Mandela, as many have noted, was a communist. He promoted and applied communist ideals. And many people say today that, while the celebration is on of his life, of the good things he did, it should not be forgotten of the things that he promoted during his time. For instance, there's a story on One News Now today. Roman Catholic bishop calls Mandela's support for abortion shameful. And this came from Roman Catholic Bishop of Providence, Bishop Thomas Tobin, in a statement on the diocesan website, criticized Mandela's decision in 1996 to sign legislation liberalizing South Africa's abortion laws. Tobin wrote, "We can only regret that his noble defense of human dignity did not include the youngest members of our human family, unborn children." So there you have it. As I say, in the midst of the celebration of what he accomplished in South Africa, there is still concern of what his communist ideals meant. And so for President Barack Obama today, in kind of advocating that young people around the world carry on his tradition, is President Barack Obama, in a way, promoting the communist ideals that Nelson Mandela held to. And so it's rather disturbing. And as I say, so there are many in the conservative community who say, wait a minute, we need to be careful. We at least need to adjust our praise and not forget these other things that Nelson Mandela stood for. Also, it was interesting today among the world leaders who were present, also the Cuban president, Raul Castro, was there. And a very interesting piece of video this morning showing President Barack Obama greeting Raul Castro, communist leader from Cuba. So there's going to be a lot of talk about that, certainly in the news, and I think probably a lot of you have differing opinions on this. Some people will say, well, we ought not to speak ill of the dead, but at the same time, 3 or 4 days now past his death, I think it is important to put in context the values, some of the values that Nelson Mandela stood for. Certainly we would not endorse, and we have to question the praise given, the unequivocal praise, the unguarded praise given by people like President Barack Obama. Does he really want to follow all of the ideals of Nelson Mandela? Let us not forget that South Africa is still in chaos. There is still widespread violence. There is still widespread poverty in that country, even in the wake of apartheid. So I think, many would say, let's be careful, Mr. President, and are you really thinking through your remarks when you call upon young people around the world to idolize what happened in South Africa? We need to be very careful about that. All right, back home. Another very interesting story today. The U.S. government saying today that it has ended up losing $10.5 billion on the General Motors bailout. Now, only the government would praise the idea of losing more than $10 billion in a deal. So what has happened is that the Treasury Department has sold its final shares of General Motors, recovering $39 billion of it, but the taxpayers invested $49.5 billion in General Motors. It says, and this quoting Treasury Secretary Jacob Lew, said yesterday, without the bailout, the country would have lost more than 1 million jobs, and the economy could have slipped from recession into a depression. Now, many people feel that is a gross over-exaggeration. And the statements and the kind of the thrust of the argument still coming from the Obama administration on this huge bailout is that things could have been far worse and that the auto industry itself would have failed. Well, a lot of people have pointed out ever since this bailout money was handed out is that there are other automakers in this country, You can talk about Toyota. You can talk about Nissan. You can talk about Hyundai, a number of others, Ford, who did not get any taxpayers' money. Let us remember that. And they're doing just fine. But so to paint General Motors as being too big to fail, and we must bail them out at any cost. Now, this story from the Associated Press on this matter of the taxpayers of this country losing more than $10 billion in this deal points out that General Motors employs 80,000 people. Now, I haven't had a chance to do the math on this, but you could have given those 80,000 people $1 million and said, here you go, and save the taxpayers of this country a whole pile of money and allow these other auto industries in this country to move forward and to fill in the gap. But as I say, for the government to celebrate the fact that taxpayers only lost $10.5 billion, I think for many folks, you just shake your head and you say this is another demonstration of the huge problem that we have in Washington, D.C. these days, in that they spend this kind of money and they are not held accountable for it. So there you have it. Also, former Secretary of State Colin Powell, in an interview this week, coming out and advocating, are you ready for this, a single-payer health care in the United States. Now, what does that mean? Well, that basically means that the government takes complete control of the healthcare system. Now we know that President Barack Obama, before he became president, was an advocate of that. It is very interesting. Harry Reid, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, caught on tape back several months ago saying the same thing. The aim is a single-payer system. And now you have Colin Powell, former Secretary of State Colin Powell, saying that we need to follow the lead of countries like Canada, Korea, Europe. He says the single-payer system, which the government pays for the cost of health. The government pays for the cost of health care. Where does the government get its money, folks? It's from us. And for him to say that universal healthcare systems, for instance, like in Canada, is working, that it's magical, and that it's the answer to how we should deal with healthcare in our country, is just devoid of the facts. I am somewhat familiar with universal healthcare in Canada. Do you really want a system? You talk about paying for it. The taxes on gasoline in Canada are horrific. Last time I looked, 40 cents on the gallon of gasoline. And in Canada, now they sell it in liters up there, but if you do the math, gas per gallon up there is about $5 a gallon right now. How would you like paying for that? Healthcare isn't free, folks, whatever way you pay for it. And universal healthcare just takes more money out of everybody's pocket. Plus, it's running out of money in these countries, and the healthcare system, the services provided to patients, is far below what most Americans have enjoyed in this country. So for Colin Powell to add his endorsement for the idea of universal health care, you begin to wonder, is that part of the agenda that's out there? All right, we're going to be going to our phones in a little while. We'll get your opinion on all of this. You're listening to Fred Jackson, sitting in for Kevin McCullough today here on AFA Today. We're going to be talking about the latest developments in illegal immigration and what the administration has planned when we come back in 3 minutes.